Hello everybody, this is Gregory with 5-Minute Catholic Apologetics, where 5 minutes of your time may get you to the divine. Today we're going to talk about why no Catholic should be watching the Winter Olympics. Now before we begin, let's start with a prayer. Nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritui Sancti, Amen. Gloria Patri et Filio et Spiritui Sancto, secuteram principio et nunc et semper et seculi seculorum. Amen. All right, so some of you might be wondering, oh, Gregory, this doesn't have to do with apologetics, but in a way it does, because it has to do with defending your faith and putting your faith in front of other things. And certainly I do have other videos here that cover Catholic living, for example, so not everything is apologetics. And I typically stay away from politics. I do have a couple episodes like There's No Such Thing as a Liberal Catholic, and Traditionalists focus less on the apostasy and more on praying and so forth. But I tend to avoid politics because to me it's pointless, because you can't really affect change on the Vatican level or the national level. But I think here with the Winter Olympics starting in Communist China, I think it's important to do a reminder episode, an exhortation as to why you should not support these Olympics. Now, a lot of you guys don't know history that well, and it's partly not your fault because we've had left of center history teachers, and certainly in academia and college, that will teach you other things about communism. But communism has always been antithetical to the Catholic Church. And really, if you look at the roots of communism, going back to Marxism and even back to the French Revolution, has been highly antithetical to the Catholic Church, to the point where anywhere the radical left comes into power, they persecute the church, they close down the churches, they kill priests and nuns, they rape nuns, they desecrate churches, and so forth. So if you look at the Chinese Communist Party, they've done the exact same thing. There are two Catholic communities in China. Essentially, there's the puppet regime, which unfortunately the Vatican and Francis recently solidified his tacit alliance or agreement to. And then there is the underground Catholic, true Catholic Church in China, which is being suppressed and persecuted by the Chinese Communist Party. So for that reason, you shouldn't be supporting the Olympics, because by watching the Olympics, you are supporting China. Now, there's nothing wrong with the typical Chinese person, but it's the regime. It's the regime, and the regime is tyrannical. We know that approximately 60 to 80 million Chinese people have died since communism took over there, right after World War II, 1948, 1949. And we know that more were killed before that during the 25-year Civil War with Chiang Kai-shek and the Nationalists and all that. But if you look at all the agricultural reforms, like the communists like to call it, like with the Great Leap Forward, you saw it over in the Soviet Union with the 5-year plans, but certainly with the Cultural Revolution in the 60s, of the purging of the revolution and just killing all dissidents. The Chinese Communist Party does not care about human life. Does not care about human life. It certainly doesn't care about Catholics. And really, America should have nothing to do with it. Look, we boycotted, you guys are old timers, the Soviet Union in 1980. We didn't go to it when it was hosted in Moscow, but it just shows you how bought off our government is, and certainly our economy is, with this world of free trade that we've had the last 30 years, that we are so co-opted and bought by the Chinese economy that nobody really is talking about boycotting going to these Olympics, but we should. Look, our soul, America's soul, has essentially been bought out by Chinese companies and by mammon, no doubt. If you look at the large majority of the products that we buy are made in China. You saw not that long ago a couple of the owners and some people said some not too friendly things about the Chinese Communist Party and the NBA, and those people were quickly silenced. And so you cannot speak badly of the Chinese Communist Party. And look, I'm not even going to touch the devil serum and that origin. I'm not even going to touch that. This is why you shouldn't support the Olympics. In short, there's approximately 1 million Muslim Uyghurs in concentration camps in Xinjiang, in the far western part of China. Now, you could say, well, they're not Catholic, I don't care. It doesn't matter. They are human beings, and these people are in camps. The women are being raped, the men are being raped, they're in forced labor, they've been castrated. It's just a horrible thing. So for that reason in itself, we shouldn't support a regime that has no value for life, in addition to how it persecutes Holy Mother Church in China, in addition to the one-child policy and unforeseen amount of forced abortions that have gone on there in the last 50, 60 years. For these reasons, we shouldn't support the Olympics, because in our little way, it's our way of saying, I'm putting my faith first before mammon, and I'm putting my faith first, and that my faith is more important than watching the Olympics. Now, God bless the athletes, the amateur athletes are there, but by watching the Olympics, you're essentially not directly complicit. Of course, you're not being directly complicit. But what you're saying is, my faith comes first. And by watching it, I understand that I am giving Mammon Incarnate, NBC, ad revenue by watching. And so by not watching, you're not contributing to their ad revenue that they're getting by hosting the Olympics. Because clearly NBC, like all of woke capitalism, doesn't care about ethics or morality at all. Because if they did, they wouldn't be hosting this. And yes, I know they've had this contract forever, but they would have, well, you know what? They would have something called, I know this is shocking, principle, something that most Americans don't have anymore, and be like, you know what? You have 1 million people in concentration camps. You had the low guy, which is essentially the gulag that Chinese communism has had for decades. You know what? And you abort babies, I'm out. I don't care how much money we're going to lose, I'm out. Heaven forbid that any corporation does that, because it's all about the profit, right? The board of directors, making profit for the stockholders and so forth. But you, as a Catholic, yes, you can do something. Don't watch it, because by watching, you're cooperating with evil. The evil that is not necessarily only NBC, but the evil that is the Chinese Communist Party. And I will say this, and YT, supports the radical left. YT isn't going to have, like this. If this channel was monetized and I try to monetize this episode, YT would not monetize it, because I am speaking poorly of the entity that only very few people are willing to talk poorly about. In the Chinese Communist Party, no, I guess not. This has nothing to do with Chinese people. The Chinese Communist Party is pure evil. It is evil incarnate. It's always hated Catholicism. It has no respect for life. They shouldn't be hosting these Olympics. We shouldn't be going to them as American athletes, and all of the West, and any nominal Christian country should not be participating in these Olympics. But you know what Christ says in Revelation 21? Who's not going to heaven? The cowards. And we are replete with cowards in industry, certainly cowards and bought off people in government. You are not that person. So you will not watch the Winter Olympics, because you do not want to cooperate with evil. So I exhort you, as fellow Catholics and fellow Christians who are listening to this, do not watch the Winter Olympics. Do not give a dime to Mammon Incarnate, which is NBC, or the Chinese Communist Party, which has no problem killing people. Guys, please post in the comments. Let me know if you agree or disagree. Please hit the notification, subscribe, and share button. Share with like-minded people. Until next time, take care, God bless, and pray.